Hi everybody, I am here to do a few videos for you. I know there's probably many questions since you haven't seen me in about a week or so. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to class today. I am feeling better, but I still have some things to work out. But I wanted to at least address some of the things that you probably have questions on because you're probably freaking out a little bit since you haven't seen me in a while. So I'm going to do a screen recording. I'm going to break them up into a couple videos so you don't have to be inundated in me talking this whole time. And you can watch what I'm talking about because I'll bring it up on the screen. So I wasn't going to teach today, to be honest. I wanted to just cover everything to help you out with the last class, your final if you will. So a couple things. I just received Professor Sweet's assignments. Those will count as homework grades, and I'll get those grades in. I'll take a look at those and hopefully have those in as soon as possible. I also just got your exams, so I will grade those and have those for you by Wednesday. I've also have looked through but haven't officially started grading your formal labs just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grade those digitally. So I will take a copy of your lab, make comments within the lab with the comment feature. I will send back the comment feature, send back comments to your labs, and then what I'll do is I'll attach I'll show you the lab grading rubric, which looks like, let's take a look. Sorry, I had everything prepped except for this, of course. Formal lab grading rubric, and here you are. You'll see all of the features right here. I'll mark them, but the comments will be on the on your formal lab report officially. So you should get two documents. Like I said, you should be getting this grading rubric and your lab back with comments. So just the do's and that. I really don't want you to stress too much about it. Of course, you probably will, but I'm going to give you till Friday at midnight to submit it digitally back to me. So you can work on it, when at your leisure. I know you have at least another lab and at least this, presentation coming up. So you can kind of spread out the work a little bit so it's not so overwhelming. But like I said, all of this stuff should be back to you as soon as possible. Hopefully, definitely your exams and your assignments will be back by Wednesday. Hopefully your formal labs will be back by, if not tonight, definitely tomorrow, so you can get working on those. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about your final, if you will. As I expressed in the email, a few students were nice enough to contact me to let me know that you were doing the extra lab, so because of that we will not have our final presentation on Thursday as planned. We're going to have it on Wednesday, okay? Wednesday as planned. And what you're going to do for Wednesday is you're basically just going to do a presentation on your website only. Well, I mean, not only, but you know what I mean. Presenting your website and what you have to do with that. I'm actually going to make a separate video and help you with some website features of Google Sites. I was going to spend class time today to show you some cool things you could do with Google Sites, so I will make a separate video for that. So what I'd like you to do for your final presentation is simply, like I said, present your website. So as I instructed, you need to create a website based on a physics content of some sort. You have to have some features. And I'd also like you to have just a subpage on the medical device that you are researching. So instead of doing a separate PowerPoint presentation, just put whatever information you were going to use for that onto your web page, and it just has to be a subpage when you do that. I'll show you an example in the Google Sites video, but that's what I'd like you to present. I'd like you to go through your website, show me what you have, and kind of just walk us through it. So let me talk a little bit about how I'm going to grade your final presentation. So you're going to have two grades because they're technically two things. One is a website grade, so I'm going to grade the way you structured your website, and then I'm going to grade how well you presented your website. So there is a website grade and an oral presentation grade. So let me take a look at those two things. Let me just bring it up. Give me 1 second. So your oral presentation will be 2 parts. First of all, it's going to be graded on the way you present it. So let me just go through each column. You can read the distinctions between each point value, 2, 4, 6, 8, if you will, totaling 80 points. But what I'd like what I'm looking for, so subject knowledge. So in other words, if your content is free fall, all your stuff is correct. You have a full understanding of it. If I ask a question or if a student asks a question, you can answer it. It's okay if you don't know the answer to all the questions. I understand that you've learned most of this pretty recently, but I do expect some sort of knowledge behind what you've added to your website here. Content, just making sure that you're when you're presenting, you have a lot to talk about for the most part, and it's all relevant. Obviously, if your subject is once again free fall and you're talking about penguins, it's just not going to work. So content is very important. Organization, making sure that everything is a seamless flow, that everything is logical, that you're not bouncing from point to point, that it's easy to follow for the most part. Technical vocabulary, although I know I can be a victim of non-technical vocabulary, it is professional to use it, so please use it. I don't expect you to use SAT words. However, it is professional to be professional is to use correct vocabulary. I expect you to do that. Graphics is kind of embedded in your website. I know this is not adopted for a website presentation, but for the most part, so long as your graphics reinforce what you're doing. Notice, for example, I'm presenting this rubric. My graphic is this rubric. It makes sense. It's logical. Making sure that, of course, you have no spelling or grammatical errors in it. Just making sure that it reads okay. Eye contact. When you're presenting, you're not just staring at the screen, that you're not staring at the computer. You're not looking up. You're not looking in circles, although that would be weird. You want to make sure you're maintaining eye contact so that the audience feels like they are valued and you value their attention. So making sure that you maintain eye contact. I'll be looking for that. Elocution is basically how well you present in terms of your voice. So you don't want to it's like this. No, you don't want to mumble. You want to make sure you're clear. You're using a big voice. Everyone can hear you. It's easy to follow. So basically, how well you project your voice is that. Questioning. If I ask a question or if somebody else asks a question, you're able to answer it appropriately. I'll try to ask at least one question so that I can fill in something in this questioning part. Keep in mind, I'm not going to ask you some hard questions that I know you're not going to be able to answer. For example, if I ask you about free fall, I'm not going to ask you what is the coefficient of a softball falling through air. I know you don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to ask you questions like, why did you choose this? Can you explain more, why you chose that picture? Just something so I could see what you know and don't know. Not a way to quiz you and make you, say, oh, you don't know that, I got you. That's not what I'm looking for in this, not at all. Also, the last thing is making sure you reference your information. I know for the most part you should be referencing many sources. I know it says 8 here. In my email I said 3. 3 is fine. If you see 8 and use 8, 8 is fine. I'm not picky. Minimum is 3. But what I'd like you to do, if you use anything that is not yours, you must reference it in MLA reference. If you don't know what MLA is, you go to an MLA generator, and they will actually, if you type in the information, they'll shoot it out with the right and correct format for your reference. You don't necessarily need a reference page, although I won't mark it off if you have one. Most importantly, if you need to reference anything, the bottom of the website would be fine. That would be completely sufficient for this. So like I said, I'm going to grade this. This is all going to be out of 80 points here, 80 points. And then I'll put any comments down if I need anything or take any notes as needed. So the other 20 points comes from this. This is a self-assessment. You get to grade yourself. You can grade yourself however you want. The biggest thing is making sure you have some evidence. If you want to give yourself perfect scores, I'm totally okay with that. If you felt that you provided in-depth coverage, you presented well, you used good examples, you used useful, good visual aids, maintained eye contact, answered all questions. If you feel that, yeah, I answered the questions, give yourself 5 points. That's fine. But the biggest thing right here is evidence. Why do you feel like you gave, why do you feel like you provided in-depth coverage? For example, evidence can include, I provided in-depth coverage of the topic because using the website, I was able to elaborate on all the topics that I talked about. If you give yourself a 3 for this, my presentation was well planned and coherent. You can say, I found my presentation to be logical. I did not jump around between points, etc. So each of these have to have something that made you say, or gives you evidence for your score. If you gave yourself a lower score, why did you give yourself a lower score? If you gave yourself a perfect score, why did you give yourself a perfect score? And that's out of 20 points. So your final, we could do it out in math. Look at this. This is fun. So your final oral presentation, there we go. It's going to be 80 points for the presentation, plus 20 points. Yes, we can all do math. It is 100 points. This will be your final presentation grade. Yes. So that will be a separate grade. I think I have it. Let me just double check the syllabus. What do I have it as updated? Yep, that is 10% of your grade, and that in fact will be your grade. So your webpage is also 10% of your grade. And then your formal lab is actually going to be counted as an exam grade. So your formal lab, let me just do a little visual here. So your formal lab, I know I bounced around a little bit. It's going to be out of 100 points, but will be tallied with your exams. So technically you have, 3 exam grades, totaling 300 points. So this will be your formal lab grade. And then, lastly, I'm going to talk about your website, which is also 10% of your grade, so your website. I'm going to actually close this down. I'll talk a lot about your website now. So just a summary of everything I talked about. Wednesday is going to be a presentation on your website. And I'll go over your exams first. That's probably what I'll do first. Go over your exams and then present, and that will be it. If we finish early, it might take a few minutes if we have to. There's no, I would say the minimum you have to spend on your minimum, there we go, is about 2 minutes in terms of time. Now you can absolutely go over 2 minutes, that's fine. I'll cut you off if you're going 15 minutes or more, just because we have 16 people to get through. But just a 2-minute presentation, just, as much as you can, or whatever you need to get through your website and to explain everything and show us your examples and whatnot. So don't worry, I'm not really timing you, but expect to present about 2 minutes or so on your website. And that will be it. I also have to give out a survey, so you get to grade me. And I mean, if you'd like to make some comments about Professor Sweet by, absolutely go for it. He'll love the